Welcome, everyone. I am honored to have the opportunity to chat with Andy Simmonds. He's a local resident here in Medicine Hat, and he's about 48 hours away from starting his journey or his adventure on a journey that he's been dreaming about for approximately 7 years now. So he's going to be leaving Medicine Hat, and I believe his route is to fly down to New Mexico, and he starts his journey of completing the Continental Divide Trail. Did I get that right, Andy?
Yeah, no, you're right, Tracy, and thanks a lot for having me and the Red Cliff Library for showing an interest in what I'm doing. I really appreciate that. So
we're excited to follow your travels here.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's great. I'm glad. And I'll try, and I have this YouTube channel, and I'm going to try and post videos. I'll probably post them every 5 days, and there may be like 5 days worth of video, sort of like every in one go, but there'll be like different days. I'm going to try and do a little video every day just to sort of record the kind of the whole journey, because even my mom and my family across in Scotland, they don't understand it. You know, they have a hard time understanding it. So I thought if they see it, you know, it would be they would have a better understanding what I'm doing, and it would kind of put their mind at rest. They could actually see that I was actually okay, you know.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, that's for sure. That's going to be a big thing on your mind too. So I'm curious to know what piqued your interest in wanting to do this.
well, you know, the funniest thing is actually, and it's kind of ironic because you're by the library. It was a book. So I actually read a book about it's probably over 7 years ago, on the Appalachian Trail, because I had been a pretty avid backpacker and hiker, and mostly due to my son. When my son was about 8 years old, I started taking him camping and like sort of backpacking. Actually, the first trip we ever did, I took him in the winter out to Spruce Coulee, which, you know, like is close to us, and that's where I took him when he was 8. I think he was 8 or somewhere around about that. And it was 20 below. It was a little colder than I expected it to be, but we didn't hike out there. I drove in my truck, and then we parked there and we just tented overnight, because I bought the tent in the winter and we were kind of both excited to use it. The summer hadn't got here yet, so we decided that we could go. And that was actually the first time. And then it just, you know, we carried on doing that, you know, almost till he was 18. And then I came across this book called On the Appalachian Trail. And I just thought, well, how cool would that be? And I wasn't thinking about, you know, it kind of crossed my mind that maybe we could do it together. But it was just the fact of hiking for 5 months, and to be able to hike from one end of the United States to the other, you know, from south to north. I just thought, well, how cool would that be? You know, and yeah, and then I had, and I think I said this in one of my YouTube videos. I was like, oh, you know what? I think I want to do that. So, and then what happened after that, actually, now that I think about it, was there was another book that came out, The Wild, and that was about the Pacific Coast Trail. They made that movie, and I also watched the movie and read the book about her too. And I thought, and it kind of was, and of course, I don't think I actually knew it was the Pacific Coast Trail. I actually thought she was hiking the Appalachian Trail, but then I found out later on it was the Pacific Coast Trail. And then I thought, yeah, you know what? I really want to do this Appalachian Trail. And then my dad, I was on holidays in Scotland, and I was at my uncle's house, and I suggested it. I brought it up kind of at the kitchen table as we were having supper. And they were like, oh, you know, I don't think this is a good idea. You know, you just got a full-time job, and, you know, you're not getting any younger, and, you know, all this kind of. So then what happened was I kind of put the whole thing on hold. And then probably about last year, I kind of, the whole hiking thing sort of kind of rose up again, almost, you could say. And I was like, you know, I'd really like to do one of those long distance trails. And I actually, in all honesty, though, I had a little bit of a setback. I didn't adjust well when my son left and went to university, and I lost my hiking buddy who I'd had for like the last 12 years. That took a big adjustment for me because I was really lonely because I would go by myself. Like, I really took me a lot to readjust to that. But I think I've managed to now. So I think I'll be okay. But, and then of course, then I started thinking about hiking again and wanting to do, like I said, this long distance trails. And I thought, you know, and I wasn't all that happy with my job anymore. And I thought, you know, like maybe I could do this. So that was, so then yeah, like I said, I made a conscious decision to do it, and I was going to try and get like a sort of leave absence. And then I sort of thought, you know, I probably won't want to go back to my job. Not that this, I mean, I understand that doing something like this, I'm not, like, I won't change, but it will put a different perspective on things. So I thought, yeah, you know what, the chances of me going back to my job probably is pretty slim. So I decided, yeah, I think I'll just finish and I'll concentrate on this, doing this trail. And that was kind of what I did. So that was in September. When I quit my job was in September. And basically it was just so I could spend more time sort of like training for this hike and doing some more sort of research and how I was going to do it. And that's kind of how it came about. But yeah, it didn't just happen, that's for sure. And
so has your son ever considered doing this with you?
You know, he can't. I think he might have considered it, but I was just visiting last weekend actually in Saskatoon, and I know that they're going to come and meet me at the end.
Right.
Him and his girlfriend. They said, "Yeah, we'll drive from Saskatoon to Waterton to see you." And so, but I don't know. I mean, he has a job and he just finished school and, you know, and all that stuff. So it's a lot more difficult for him to sort of, and he has a girlfriend, you know, I'm sure he's, you know,
so maybe a shorter one in the future.
Yeah, maybe it might work, but yeah, not right now.
Yeah. So what kind of elements and terrain and things like that are you expecting along the way?
Well, it's pretty interesting actually, because I'll start off in New Mexico, which is what they call high desert. So there isn't a lot of water around there, and it's like sagebrush, but not so much like prairie, but more like gravel and sand. And then the further north you go, it starts to get, you know, a little more tree, you know, starts to get low bushes and more trees. So and of course it's actually, I just saw it's 111 degrees Fahrenheit down there right now, or at least it was one day. So I hope it's not that hot when I start, but it could be.
Right.
But I won't be actually in it for long, because it's actually at a pretty high elevation down there. And I'll be climbing all the way through New Mexico. And actually the northern part of New Mexico, they could actually have snow there right now. So so I'll go through New Mexico, which is kind of deserty. And the further north I get, it gets more vegetation and more water as you get closer to Colorado. And then once I get to Colorado, that's when the big mountains are. That's really, you know, if you consider that Waterton, I think some of the mountains in roundabout Waterton are around 7,000 feet above sea level. In Colorado, the highest point that I will go on is double that. It's 14,000 feet above sea level.
Wow.
So So Colorado is pretty much is going to be really mountainy,
Okay.
and I'm just waiting. I'm just hoping that there isn't too much snow.
Yeah,
That's
in one of your videos on your YouTube channel, you had mentioned that there was currently about 10 feet of snow. Now, that was back in March. Do you know how much there is now?
yeah. I checked it a couple of days ago, and it's around about 6.
Oh,
There's still about 6 feet of snow. So
so
yeah, there's still quite a bit.
how long will it take you to get from New Mexico to Colorado?
I'm thinking it'll take me about a month and a half.
So hopefully some of that melts yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah, but I mean, there'll certainly be snow when I get there. I know there's going to be snow. It's just
Right,
how much. Um,
right.
so I have a couple of options there. If I can make it through, then I'll continue going through Colorado, and there is ways to get around the snow, but I want to try and keep as close to there's lots of alternates you can take on the Continental Divide Trail. It's not quite like the Appalachian Trail, where the Appalachian Trail, you have one trail, you follow it, and you basically don't deviate from it. The Continental Divide Trail isn't really set up like that. They have, because it's not as established as those other two trails, the Pacific Coast Trail and the Appalachian Trail. So you can take alternates.
Okay.
Sometimes because of burns, they'll be doing a burn, or it could be something else. But they do have a lot of alternates, so that you can get round the snow. And as long as I think it's within 50 miles of the Continental Divide, as long as you're within 50 miles of the Continental Divide, that's classed. They see that as a complete hike. Like
Okay.
there's a wiggle room. But yeah, I'll have to wait and see. So hopefully I can get through Colorado. And then if I get through Colorado into Wyoming, once I get to Wyoming, you go through what they call the Great Basin, which is they call it the Red Desert,
Okay.
which is it's going to be pretty sparse there. It's kind of more, a lot of people I've watched some YouTube videos, they've described it as it's similar to New Mexico, but more vegetation, but not a lot of trees and not a lot of water. It's really dry through there, I guess, or it can be, or it could be soaking wet and I'll be up to my knees in mud. So it can go either way, I guess.
Right.
And then I get into the Wind River Range, which is more kind of mountainy. That's in the northern part of Wyoming. And then of course I'll get into Yellowstone, where I've never been. So that'll be interesting to see the Old
Yeah, for
Faithful and all
sure.
that. And then once I get past Wyoming and get into, I'll go into Idaho but just a little bit. I think I'm only in Idaho for a few days. It's just the way the Continental Divide goes. And there's an alternate where you can bypass Idaho and just go right into Montana. It depends. So I'll decide that when I get there. And then once I get into Montana, actually, I think the first part of Montana, it's pretty dry too. Like and not as mountainous until you start coming north. So, and then once I get in the further north, the closer I get to the Canadian border, then you're more into Glacier National Park,
Right.
in the
Right.
northern part of Montana, and then I'll be at the border. So but that's why I chose it.
So when you get to the border, how do you cross? Do you just walk across the border
Yeah.
crossing
Yeah, I just walk across. Nobody will even know I'm back. Yeah, I'll just walk across and they'll just carry on to Waterton,
okay.
which is I think about an hour. Take me an hour and a half, I think, maybe 2 hours from the border crossing to get to actually the town site in Waterton.
Wow, that's it.
Yeah, and then that'll be
That
there's no there'll
that
be
last
no
day is going to go fast.
I'll get to I mean it's hard to think about it, because but I mean I may be on my own, right? And just get to just get to the border and and then
Yeah.
so but yeah, But I was going to say, Tracy, that's why I flipped from the Appalachian Trail to the Continental Divide Trail, because of course the Appalachian Trail finishes, but I think it's between Windsor and the border there.
Okay.
So of course you have to but you see the Continental Divide Trail, I'm only 3 hours away from Medicine. I finished right in Waterton, which is probably,
that's perfect.
Yeah, my favorite place to go actually is Waterton. So to finish in Waterton and only be 3 hours away from home, I think that it's like, fly down, walk back, it's like, perfect.
Nice. So you're going to have a whole welcoming crew when you get back, since you're that close to home.
Yeah. Well, I know like Lisa, my girlfriend Lisa will be there, and my son and his girlfriend are going to be there. And so a friend of mine said that he might be there.
Excellent.
So that's pretty exciting. But it's, it's, unfortunately, there's a lot of things that can go wrong in 5 months.
I can imagine.
I keep my fingers crossed that everything will go. There'll be times when it won't go well, but as long as I'm healthy, I don't get an injury, then I should be okay. I just got to keep moving north.
Right. So how do you prepare mentally and physically for a hike of this magnitude?
Well, I think mentally, how I've prepared mentally is I've tried not to think about the trail in its whole entirety. Okay. I've broken it up in my head into small sections. And I think once I get on the trail and actually start moving, it'll almost be like, if I'm having a bad day, it could be from one water source to the next, or from one day to the next. Okay, today I'm going to try and get to here. That's going to be my goal. And then, the next day I get up in the morning and I think, okay, I'm going to try and, get to this point. And I'm just going to keep thinking about it like that. And I've also prepared myself that I'm going to be lonely. Mm-hmm. Like I'm prepared for that. I'm probably going to get burnt from the sun. It's going to be uncomfortable, and I just have to accept it. I just have to sort of, it's not every day is going to be, a good day. But there'll be good days. And if I'm having a bad day, I just got to say, well, you know what, tomorrow it's a new day, and hopefully it'll be better. I'm going to get rained on. I'm going to be cold. I'm going to be dirty. I hope I don't get blisters, but I may get blisters. And so that's kind of how I prepared myself mentally. And then there's things that I've done, to sort of help with that, where I have that satellite communicator. So I'm going to text, I'm able to text basically everybody. Nice. And let them know how I'm doing. And I can send a message and tell people where I am, even as long as I can see the sky. Because sometimes I won't get cell service, although I'll have my phone with me. I may not get cell service all the time, but with the satellite, I can always be in contact with people. So, if I'm having a bad day, I can always text Lisa and I can always say, you know what, I'm having a bad day, or whatever, and that'll help, even if I'm on my own and I have nobody to talk to, sort of thing. Because the trail is actually, it's not that well, if you compare the Appalachian Trail, let's say, for example, there are thousands of people on that trail. Thousands. I don't know how many will be on the Continental Divide this year, but it's probably more like, if it's in the hundreds, I'd be surprised.
Wow.
Like over 3,000, and you're talking about over 3,000 miles.
Yeah.
So
you might have to be like Tom Hanks and bring a Wilson with you.
Yeah.
So you have someone to talk to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll be talking to myself a lot. And then when I do get the chance to talk to somebody, I'll probably be, going a mile a minute, which I can
Yeah,
do at the
exactly.
best of times. So yeah, I'll be yeah, but I'm sort of, that's kind of how I prepared mentally. And then physically, what I've been doing is I've been hiking with my backpack on. I haven't done it every day. Um, mainly because I was worried about burning myself out because I had all this time, where I didn't have a job that was interfering with training, and I mean, I did train when I could. Probably I tried to do about 5 times a week because that was kind of what I was trying to simulate, was because usually I'll be hiking for 5 to 6 days. And then I probably, depending on how I feel, I would probably hit a town that I would be resupplying in. So I could take a day off if I wanted to, or take the rest of the day off and start the next day. And so that's kind of what I was trying to simulate. So I weighted my backpack down with about 30 pounds to try and simulate the weight. And then the mileage, depending, when the weather was a lot nicer, I could do 20 miles in a day, like consecutively. But I usually did about 14 or a little under 14 in that kind of, and that's kind of, and I thought that was probably as much as well, at the time it was kind of as much as I thought I wanted to do, because I was worried that if I could almost, I didn't want to be sort of like trail ready right away, because from what I've seen with other people, by the time they're done, you're actually glad it's over, because you've been walking for 5 months, and you're actually, people, even though they really wanted to get on the trail and do it and everything, at the end of the 5 months, you're actually happy it's over. You're disappointed it's over in the same hand, but you're happy that it's over. So I didn't want to I thought, you have a lot of walking ahead of you, but you need to be kind of ready for it. So that's why I sort of kept it what I thought was kind of, so the reason I did 20 miles, or I did over 20 miles, was I had never walked that far in one day before. So I wanted to make sure that I knew myself I could do it.
Right.
And I know I can do it. So the next thing is, well, as long as I was doing something relative. And then the nice thing about this is that you it's not a race. So, I mean, I'm racing against the snow, the weather, in one sense, but I have time that I can it's almost like I can train as I'm going along. I can get my legs as I'm going along. So I'm going to start off sort of pretty slow with regards to mileage per day. And then as the time goes on, I'll build it up. And then, because it seems to be that people do peak while they're on this trail, and then they peak, and then they kind of level off. They actually go downhill where they're fatigued all the time, because they've already peaked, and then and that's why people towards the end just hope it's over, because they're basically, it's just the length and the amount of miles and just the conditions, and kind of wears you down after 5 months. Well, at least some people, anyway. At least some people.
So I know that you've been doing a lot of research and following other people who have completed this hike. What have you learned from their experiences?
Well, I think the one thing is, the one thing that sort of resonates with them most is, a lot of people said you have to be flexible. So that's what I've tried to make myself, where I kind of have a plan, but it's like a very loose plan. So I won't get disappointed, so like my plan is, hopefully I would go from the south end to the north. But if it doesn't work out like that because of weather or because of trail conditions, I need to adjust that plan as I'm going along. So the one thing I've learned is be flexible. Whether it's every day or you know, I could come across a fire ban and have to go around it for, you know, it could be 100 miles. So I need to be flexible and just roll with the punches sort of thing. And I think if I can do that, and keep everything like kind of in perspective and take my time, like don't start too quick. Even though I could maybe walk 20, 25 miles a day, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to purposely make sure that for the first couple of weeks, I don't walk too much. And then hopefully then I'll get my legs under me, and and I'll just adapt to whatever. I think one guy that kind of resonated with me, he said just kind of live in the moment. So hopefully that's that's what I've learned. Yeah.
Really, because when you're walking, wherever you are, you won't be there tomorrow. So you want to try and take in as much as you can every day, because it can be very different each day, right?
Yeah, and just live in the moment. And I think if I do that, and this one fella, it's kind of funny because the last couple of weeks I haven't done hardly any walking, because I watched this one video and this fella said, and they asked him the same question. They said, "So how do you train?" He said, well, usually, he said, what I do, he said, is try and put on as much weight as I can. And he said, I lie on the couch and watch TV. That was how he trained for the Continental Divide Trail. He's a little different, a super nice guy. But so the last 2 weeks, that's kind of what I've been doing.
Okay.
I've been just, and that's because I'm hopefully preparing myself to walk for the next 5 months.
Right.
So,
exactly.
yeah. So I feel like I've done everything that I can, and that's actually from these YouTube videos and just people's different, you know, experiences. There's a documentary actually that's 6 hours long. I've watched it a couple of times, 3 or 4 times. It's a little older because a lot of these guys did it before GPS and apps on the phone, and
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, probably it was way more difficult, you know.
Right.
But I've watched that, and that's a lot of what they say. Be flexible, you know, live in the moment, just take it as it comes, adapt to whatever is in front of you, you know, just take it day by day. And one fella said, enjoy the journey, not the destination.
Right, exactly.
And although I would like to finish, you know, in one season, if that doesn't happen, that's okay. It's okay. That's another reason why I wanted to go north, because if I don't finish, I can always go back next year, and I don't have so far to go.
Right,
I don't have to go all the way to Mexico. I can just go wherever I left off and finish it, you know. I mean, I hope I can do it, but you know, you never know what's going to happen. And
yeah, for sure.
You know, just
so
that's
along the way, what kind of wildlife do you expect to encounter?
Well, you know what, the funny thing is, in New Mexico, it's pretty similar to what we have here in Medicine Hat, actually. So they have rattlesnakes, they have antelope, they have deer. They actually have bears in New Mexico, which I was really surprised. There's not many of them, but they do have them.
Right.
There's a place called the Gila. It's part of the trail. It's called the Gila Alternate. It's an alternate on the Continental Divide Trail, so it kind of doesn't follow the official route, but I guess it's a really, and that's not far north in New Mexico, and there are actually bears in there. It's a big river. Basically, it's tipping out of Colorado. It's the water is coming from Colorado, ends up in the Gila, and yeah, there's bears there. So I was really surprised at that. I didn't expect, you know, there to be bears in New Mexico. And then they have this thing called this horned toad. It looks like a lizard to me, but I guess it's they have these in New Mexico, and I'm kind of excited to see one of them because they're certainly different, you know, pretty.
Right.
And then you know, in Colorado, I think it's mostly, you know, it's like deer, elk, moose, and then marmots. They have a lot. You seem to get a lot of
Okay.
marmots. And then, yeah, Wyoming is kind of more or less the same. And then in northern part of Wyoming, that's kind of when you get into grizzly country again and more bears. But
Okay.
it's the grizzlies that, you know, the black bears, not that they're not a problem, but the grizzlies are like your biggest.
Right.
You have to be careful, you know, and bighorn sheep, uh,
Oh, yeah.
goats. That's in Colorado, Wyoming. So that'll be, I mean, similar to a lot of wildlife that we have up here, really. Well,
Right.
at least in the Rockies, you know.
So I know that, again, going back to your videos, you've talked about that you have experience uh, hiking in bear country.
Yeah.
So do you feel confident going through grizzly country that you should make it through
Yeah,
fine?
I think so. I'm going to make a lot of noise.
Yeah,
That's,
good.
I mean, and I'm hoping that maybe when I get to grizzly country that I can sort of team up with somebody,
Okay.
maybe in a group, because it's certainly safety in numbers. I mean, if I
Okay.
have to be on my own, then I'll just be more diligent, you know, like make a noise, make sure they know I'm coming, things
Right.
like that. But I mean, if I can team up with somebody, you know, somebody that maybe we hike the same pace, or even that we're going to the same location at night, you know, that would be kind of nice.
Right.
But if it doesn't work out like that, I need to be prepared to be on my own. So
Yeah.
I think I'm okay with that. I'm
Okay.
just going to do everything that I can, um, you know, so I can be safe, make lots of noise. I'll probably stop before I get to wherever it is that I'm going to spend the night. Maybe it's like, say, a couple of miles before I get there, and I'll cook my supper, and then I'll carry on
Okay.
walking till I get to the campsite, and then I'll pitch my tent, and I'll make sure and hang my food away from my tent, and make sure I don't have any food, toothpaste, nothing that smells,
Right.
other
Right.
than me. Then that'll be okay. But yeah, nothing that could attract them. That somebody's going to come in, or a bear could come in the middle of the night and be inquisitive as to what that smell was.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and if I do that, I should be okay. I mean, I
Good.
should be all right.
Good.
But we'll
So,
see.
so has it hit you yet that you're about 48 hours away from starting this?
No, because like I mentioned to you, Monday is I have to get my COVID test,
Right.
and
Which,
I'm probably
which
more
for
nervous.
anyone watching this, this is why we're doing this via Zoom, is just to take all the precautions that we can.
Yeah, I'm probably more nervous about that than I actually am about starting the trail, because, you know, I've done all this planning, you know, I've waited all this time, and, you know, I'm thinking, yeah, and I just need to get a negative COVID test so I can get on the plane. I mean, I feel fine. I don't, you know, everything is okay, but, and, you know, and I've thought about, if I do test positive for some reason, I thought, do I have you know, what am I going to do? And to be honest, then I go the other direction.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to start in the south, because I miss my window to come north.
Okay.
Because if I don't go now, I'll never get further enough. I could never finish the trail.
Okay.
But if you go south, you don't start until the middle of June.
Oh, okay.
So I could start from the middle of June in Waterton and
Right.
head south. Um, I'm hoping I don't have to do that.
Exactly. Yes.
But that's kind of my contingency plan. If and it's unfortunate because I've already booked, you know, I fly from Calgary to Tucson, then I get a bus from Tucson to a place called Lordsburg in New Mexico.
Okay.
And then I get a shuttle from Lordsburg to the trailhead in New Mexico and the Mexican border, because it really is in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
Like you need a four-wheel drive vehicle or at least a truck to get to the monument, the southern terminus. So I have all these things booked, and of course, you know, if I get a negative test, it's just gone, right? It's just
well, we're certainly hoping for the best.
Yeah, so far so good.
Good.
That's for sure.
Good.
So yeah, that's once that happens, then I will get excited. I'm sure, you know, once I get on the plane, and then the next thing that I'm worried about, you know, I'm not worried about the trail.
Yeah.
That's I'm worried about the COVID test. I'm worried about my bag getting to Tucson, not getting lost.
Right.
My luggage. So I'm taking almost as much as I can of what I'm taking on as hand luggage. And then the things that I have to put in the hold, I'm putting in the hold. But the funny thing was, there's a Canadian fella who's doing the Appalachian Trail right now, who I followed on YouTube, and he lost his luggage.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he got down there and his luggage is lost. And he had to go buy, you know, stuff.
Wow.
And so that I'm a little worried about. And but yeah, and once I get there and all my gear is there, and I have a few little jobs to do in Tucson, like set up my phone with a phone plan, a States phone plan, a US phone plan.
Right.
I have to do that. I have to buy a few bits and pieces in Tucson because I get to Lordsburg at midnight on the bus, and then I have to be at to get picked up at 6 a.m. the next day. So I'll only get a few hours
There's
sleep.
not much time.
No, and so I have a little window in Tucson, because I get to Tucson around 2:45 in the afternoon, and my bus doesn't leave till 9 o'clock at night. And that was the best I could do. So, and it's a 3-hour bus drive from Tucson to Lordsburg on the Greyhound. So thankfully they still have that running.
Well, you're going to have to document all of this. Maybe you'll have a book out of it in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there is some books out there, you know, there's certainly people have written some books. And yeah, it's kind of has crossed my mind a little bit. I don't know if I could do it or not, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
You know, we certainly wish you all the best, Andy, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us here today. I know there's going to be a lot of people interested in following you, and if anybody wants to check out some of his previous videos that he's done on YouTube, you can follow him on Andy Hikes. He talks a little bit more about how he's prepared, the food that he has, things like that. So yeah, please subscribe to his channel and follow the updates. And then we can welcome him back home. And with any luck, we'll even get an in-person interview at the Red Cliff Library when he gets back.
Yeah, I would really like that. And thanks again, Tracy. I really appreciate you showing an interest in the library. And I hope that, you know, like I said, it kind of did start from a book. So
that's good to hear.
I certainly read a book. That was how it started. I read a book, and I thought it was a great story and a great experience. And
well,
I think we need a movie out of it.
Yeah. Interesting that you say that, because I recently read a book where they went to the Galapagos Islands. And so that has been on my mind for the last few months. So, you know, it might take me 7 years, but I plan to get there.
Yeah. Don't give up. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks again, Andy. And best of luck to you. We'll certainly be thinking of you on your travels.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tracy. I really appreciate everything. Yeah, thanks.
You bet.
Okay.